10 Commandments, 10 films. Krzysztof Kieslowski sat for months in his small, smoke-filled room in Warsaw, writing the scripts with a lawyer he'd met in the early 1980s during the Solidarity trials. Krzysztof didn't know how to write, the director remembered, but he could talk. For hours they talked about Poland and turmoil, and together they wrote the screenplay for No End in 1985, which told 3 stories of life under martial law. The government found it unsympathetic, the opposition found it compromised, and the Catholic Church found it immoral. During the controversy, the collaborators ran into each other in the rain, and Piesowicz, maybe looking for more trouble, shouted, "Someone should make a film about the 10 Commandments." Well, together they made 10 films, each an hour long, for Polish television. The series ran in the late 1980s. It played at the Venice and other film festivals and gathered extraordinary praise. People started talking about this as one of the most amazing film projects of recent years. But the form was ungainly for theatrical showing. Do you ask the audience to sit there for 10 hours, or do they come back for 5 two-hour sessions? As a result of that problem with exhibition for 10 years, the Decalogue never had an ordinary U.S. theatrical run, nor was it even available here on video. At last, 2 years ago, it was released in North America on tapes and DVD discs by Facets, and now comes this visually enhanced DVD release. Before that American video release, I taught a class on the Decalogue at the University of Chicago using tapes from England. And we found we lost a lot of time trying to match up the films and the commandments. There is not a one-to-one correlation. Some films touch on more than one commandment. Others involve the whole ethical system suggested by the commandments. And for that matter, the Protestant, Jewish, and Catholic versions of the commandments are not in exactly the same order. It doesn't matter because these are not simplistic illustrations of the rules, but stories that involve real people and the complexities of real problems. All the stories involve characters who live in the same high-rise Warsaw apartment complex. As we move around the complex in the 10 stories, we grow familiar with the layout and even glimpse characters from one story in the background of other stories, sharing the lift, for example. There's a young man who appears in 8 of the films, a solemn onlooker who never says anything, but sometimes makes sad eye contact. I thought maybe he represented Christ, but Kieslowski, in an essay about the series, says, I don't know who he is. Just a guy who comes in and watches us, watches our lives. He's not very pleased with us. Directors are notorious for not pinning down the meanings of their images, and in this case, I like the theory of Annette Insdorf in her valuable book about Kieslowski, Double Lives, Second Chances. She compares the watcher to the angels in Winder's Wings of Desire, who are pure gaze, able to record human folly and suffering, but unable to alter the course of the lives they witness. In a sense, this guy is also looking on and can't get involved as these lives unfold. The 10 films are not philosophical abstractions, but personal stories that involve us immediately. I hardly stirred while I was watching some of them. After seeing the series, Stanley Kubrick observed that Kieslowski and Piesowicz have the very rare ability to dramatize their ideas rather than simply talking about them. Quite so. There was not a moment when the characters talk about specific commandments or moral issues. Instead, they're absorbed in trying to deal with real-life ethical challenges in their own day-to-day existence. Consider the heroine of Decalogue 2, who wants a doctor to tell her whether her sick husband will live or die. The doctor, a gruff and solitary man, is almost cruelly distant with her. He resists being asked to play God. The woman explains why she must know. She's pregnant with another man's child. Her husband is not fertile. If he is going to live, she'll have an abortion. If he's going to die, she'll have the baby.
Niech pan powie, że umrze. Chodzi o to, żebym ja po prostu wiedziała. Ja chcę zrobić dla niego wszystko, co mogę, ale...
Pani nie może. Może pani tylko czekać.
Jeżeli pan mi da jeszcze minutę czasu, wytłumaczy, na czym polega mój problem.
Proszę.
Do tej pory nie mogłam mieć dzieci. Od 3 miesięcy jestem w ciąży, nie z moim mężem. Jeżeli ją usunę, wiem, że nie będę miała już szans, wiem to na pewno. Jeżeli mój mąż będzie żył, nie mogę urodzić tego dziecka. Mężczyzna, o którym mówię, jest mi bardzo bliski. Nie wiem, czy pan wie, można kochać 2 ludzi jednocześnie. Można. Czy pan to rozumie?
Well, in a sense, that's the stuff of soap opera, but here in this film, it becomes a moral puzzle, solved finally only through a flashback to the doctor's own painful past. And even then, the solution is indirect, since events do not turn out as anyone anticipates. Kieslowski roots the issues in very specific performances by the doctor and the woman, Alexander Bardini and Kristana Janda, and a beautiful, subtle thing happens. The film is about their separate moral challenges and not about the two of them locked together by one challenge. Or for that matter, look at the moral switch in Decalogue 6, which is about a lonely teenage boy who uses a telescope to spy on the sex life of a morally careless, lonely woman who lives across the way. The kid decides he loves her. They see each other because he's a clerk in the post office. Then he takes a morning milk route so he can see her then, too. Almost inevitably, she finds out he's a peeping Tom and also an anonymous phone caller and a prankster, but we can hardly guess what she's going to do then.
Skąd pan wie?
Podglądam panią.
Co?
Podglądam panią przez okno.
Zmykaj stąd. Spieprzaj. Halo? Liczę do 3. 1, 2.
Halo?
Patrzysz?
In one of the sharp but plausible dramatic twists that Kieslowski likes in all of his films, the woman invites a teenager to her apartment and uses his sexual inexperience to humiliate him. And that is still only the halfway point in their moral duel. What happens next to him, to her, and to them shows right and wrong shifting back and forth between them as sinner and victim exchange roles. Their relationship shows situational ethics becoming fluid and confusing. In the Decalogue, Kieslowski deliberately avoided everyday facts of life in Poland because he thought they were a distraction. The rules, the laws, the shortages, the bureaucracy. He deals with those parts of life that are universal. In Decalogue 1, for me the saddest of all of his stories, he tells about the love between a smart father and a genius son. Together they use computers to calculate the freezing rate of a nearby pond so they will know when the ice is thick enough to skate safely. But ponds and currents cannot always be studied so simply, and perhaps the computer is a false god. None of these films are simple demonstrations of black and white moral issues. Decalogue 5, for example, is about a murderer who seems completely amoral, so that to understand him is not to forgive him. But the story also focuses on his defense attorney, a young man trying his first case and passionately opposed to the death penalty. Decalogue 9 is about a man who discovers his wife is having an affair. He hides himself to spy on them and eavesdrops as she breaks up forever with her lover and then discovers the husband in hiding.
Widzimy się ostatni raz. Tyle ci chciałam powiedzieć.
Aniu,
Idź już.
ja nie muszę iść z tobą do łóżka, ale nie wyrzucaj mnie.
Cię nie wyrzucam. Ale idź już.
Kocham cię. Nigdy o tym nie mówiliśmy.
Nie. Nie będziemy.
Dowiedział się.
O nim też nie będziemy mówić. Nie dowiedział się i się nie dowie. Zapnij kurtkę i idź. Dobrze wyglądasz.
Aniu,
Idź już. No. Wyjdź stąd. Wyjdź.
Well, she did the wrong thing, adultery, and she did the right thing, ending it. His spying was a violation of her trust, and then there's an outcome where pure chance almost leads to a death, which was avoidable if either one of them had been a little more honest. At the end, you see that the commandments work not like science, but like art. They are instructions for how to paint a worthy portrait with our lives. Kieslowski and Piesowicz wrote the screenplays intending that each one would be filmed by a different director. But Kieslowski was unwilling to give them up once he read them, and he directed all 10, each one with a different cinematographer. That was interesting, so that the visual styles would not become repetitious. The settings, of course, are much the same. Gray exteriors in the winter for the most part, small apartments, offices, the world of this housing complex. The faces are where the life of the film resides. The people of the Decalogue are not characters involved in the simple-minded struggles of Hollywood plots. They're adults. For the most part, they live outside organized religion. They're faced with situations in their own lives that require them to make moral choices. I don't think you should watch the films all at once, even if you did want to watch them for 10 hours in a row, but maybe look at each one on a different day. Then if you're lucky and have someone to talk with, you can discuss them and learn about yourself. Or if you're alone, you can discuss them with yourself, as so many of Kieslowski's characters do.